Welcome to this month's episode of The Automation Loop, the show that brings you the inside scoop of what's going on at NTC and the network automation industry. I'm Tim Fiola, along with Tim Schreyack. Today, we're going to talk about network automation and AI. Where is automation a solution, and where is it an automation band-aid? Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment. Tim Schreyack, let's get into it. So Tim, I had a very interesting conversation with a customer this week, and it involved the use of AI in network automation. And this is something that's on the minds of a lot of folks right now is, how do we use this powerful new tool with our existing network automation, or how do we develop around this powerful new tool? Let me just tell you what this customer is doing right now, at a high level at least. Right now, this customer has a data and a process problem. And right now, they're using an LLM to format their data for automation. So right now, they have a data problem. And then they're also considering using AI as a band-aid to fix their process problem. This was interesting for a few reasons. First of all, because I think they're making a mistake, and I advise them that. But also, what I want to talk about today is you can't just throw AI at your network automation problem and expect it to be fixed, at least in the long term.
I love this idea, like, I've got this really broken business process, and rather than consider how I might fix that process, let me just throw AI at it, because AI is magic and it will just make everything work. Maybe it will in the short term, but it's definitely going to be very fragile. It's going to be prone to breaking. And what happens if your AI produces an unexpected result, which we know AI does?
Right. And we've talked about this before. AI is non-deterministic by its nature, and there are some things you can do to tune that in. But when you scale out that non-deterministic behavior, that becomes a bit terrifying, especially when you're not considering guardrails around it. That becomes terrifying.
Suddenly now I'm running my business on hoping that AI does the thing it's supposed to do, which that's not how AI works. It doesn't always do the thing it's supposed to do.
That's right. That's right. And in the end, you're going to have to tackle the data and process problems you have or don't know you have. They will have to be solved. And that's, I think, a great topic for today's show.
It's a perfect segue into what we were wanting to talk about anyway, which is two articles that were written by folks here at NTC. The first one is by Brad Haas, and it's on a trust-building trajectory, AI in network automation. This one was published in RT Insights. And then there's another one around a similar time period by Jason Edelman, that's titled AI Alone Isn't Always the Best Answer for Network Automation. That one was published on automation.com. We'll give you links and stuff if you want to follow along and read those yourself. But interesting ideas coming out of both of these articles, and both of them talking about this concept that we cannot simply just take our broken process and expect AI to solve it, because AI does not do deterministic outputs. That's not how it currently works today. Now, maybe someday in the future, we will be able to rely on AI for that result. But today, that is not the case. And in fact, the way that it's built, it just doesn't do that. And so as we look at Brad's article, for example, Brad's is written kind of at a higher level about how you might use AI and why you might want to incorporate it into your workflows. But while doing that, what do I need to think about from a guardrail perspective? Like, what are the guardrails I should be putting around AI in my automation flows, or my business for that matter, whether it's automation or otherwise?
Yeah, and it's important to, if I had to sum up Brad's article in one sentence, you have to know what your AI is doing. You can't just throw AI at a problem blindly and expect good results, at least not scaled results that are good over time.
Yeah.
It's going to break. It's going to break. The data and process have to be solved eventually. And that is what I think a lot of people are going to have to figure out, some the hard way, but some are going to understand that as well.
And in my mind, the way I kind of thought of this when I was reading Brad's article, as former network engineer, where I spent half my career, I know one of the things that we always used to do was we would create standards. So we would put them in a Confluence doc, we would document them somewhere, and then everyone would then promptly not follow the standard. So if you think of that now, translate that idea into AI. That is, we define some things we want AI to do. But if you don't enforce that definition, AI will not do it. They will do it some of the time, but it's not going to do it all of the time. AI behaves very similarly to humans. And this is exactly what humans do, right? Like, we mostly follow the standard, but then there's times we don't. And it does exactly the same thing. So when you think of this from a output perspective, especially from a tool that has tremendous power, and not only the power, but the speed at which it can do things and really screw things up, you need to have enforcement of your standards or your guardrails, as Brad calls them in his article, right? Referring to those guardrails. If you don't enforce them, it's just going to ignore them. So the guardrails are pointless. It's got to be enforced, not just defined.
Yeah. And it really goes, the guardrails are important, and understanding how some of these technologies that are we're hearing a lot about today, like MCP, fit into this theme we're building here, guardrails and trust, and how the AI is going to interact with the network automation, like model context protocol is a good example here. That's going to provide a layer that AI can interact with to understand what to do. So when I look at Brad's article, Brad is laying out an argument that you can't just throw AI at it. You have to put in guardrails to build the trust. And trust, like we've said before many times, it's important for network automation, and it's going to be very important for AI adoption.
And then in Jason's article, Jason takes a slightly more, let's say, practical or architecture approach, which is less of a high level view like Brad's is. And Jason's is more of a detailed view of like how I might actually begin to implement AI in my workflows, specifically network automation workflows. And Jason's idea really is that we should be using AI to capture things in front of our automation that then AI fires into automation. The idea is that way I can codify what my automation is, and I can get a reliable, consistent, deterministic output from that because it's codified, versus allowing AI to sort of invent what it should do. So a great way that I could think of this is maybe you have some filter on your syslog that looks for unusual messages, and that might be codified. It might then spit those unusual messages into some AI system. The AI system looks at those unusual messages and says, oh, I see something weird happening. Maybe I should fire off the automation that brings down a circuit, a backup circuit, or switches us to the backup circuit rather than the primary because there's some weird route situation happening, right? I don't want AI to go think about how it's going to do that, because it might decide the best way for me to do that is to fail everything over to the DR data center. And you're like, wait. I didn't want to fail the whole data center. I just wanted to bring the primary internet circuit down and switch, right? Because you don't know what it might do. It might think that's the best way to go about this.
Yeah. And when I look at Jason's article, the theme of Jason's article is let AI decide what to do, not how to do it. So kick off a troubleshooting exercise for this BGP peer that's down. Let the deterministic automation handle that. There's a specific way that should be handled, programmatic way that should be handled. Don't let AI try and figure out how to do that on the fly every time you have a BGP peer down. That is a Band-Aid, and that does not become scalable over time. I was going
to say, if you've ever tried to create closed loop automation where you're observing some events and then doing something as a result, that observation of the events is very difficult to get right when you're using Python code and say regex expressions or what have you. That's where AI shines, is like, look at the events, see something unusual, know that it's out of the norm, and then fire off that automation.
Yep. And the context around how does the AI figure out what's abnormal or not, that is really important as well. And this leads to another point that Jason makes in his article. Data is still king. Good data is still king. 1, to train your AI appropriately. And then 2, to power your deterministic automation. Clean data is strategic. And this is just another example of that manifestation. Automation is a building block for AI implementation. Deterministic automation and AI implementation, they're paired together. They are not exclusive of the other.
And the way I see this is, it's as if the AI is becoming an orchestration layer on top of your automation. It could replace your actual orchestration like AAP or AWX or whatever you're using. Probably not, at least definitely not in the short, maybe in the longer term. But at a minimum, it's kind of like an orchestrator on top of the orchestrator. That is, observing events or whatever it might be, making decisions based on that of what automation workflow or orchestration workflow should I kick off as a result of this thing that just occurred? Or even an input from a ticket. Maybe a user is plunking in a ticket. I need something to happen on the network. And we all know what usually happens with tickets like that is it goes to a human for review, and the human's like, you didn't ask me for any of the right things. You didn't give me any of the details that I needed. And we have to go back and forth and have this dance back and forth to get what we actually needed. AI could absolutely do that. Right? The AI could look at the ticket, say, oh, they didn't give me all the stuff I need. Let me go find what I can. Let me ask the user for the things that I can't, get that ticket into a state that it's actually processable, and then fire it off into the automation for actual production use, right? So interesting ways you might use AI in these cases. And it's always this sort of orchestrator layer on top of the actual codified results so that we get the results that we were desire. One thing go ahead, Tim.
Yep. Okay. Well, I know we each have some thoughts about the last statement in Jason's
So Jason
blog
makes a very
future.
bold statement from our perspective at the end of the article. And since this is our blog, even though Jason is the CTO and founder here at Network Decode, we get to say whatever we like. So at least I disagree a bit with this statement. Go ahead, Tim. I think you had some thoughts as well.
Well, yeah, I'm going to qualify this statement a bit more. I'm not sure if it's not all AI, but it is all data based. Again, I don't think there's ever going to be, no matter how sophisticated AI gets, it's not going to get there without good data. So I would substitute the future is not all AI. It is driven by data.
For those of you listening, let me just actually read the sentence that we're referring to so you can understand what we're talking about here, which is Jason writes, the future is not all AI. It is AI-informed decisions executed by proven automation, a combination that allows networks to become more reliable, more resilient, and ultimately more invisible to the business outcomes they support. And my comment here was, I would agree with this statement if we said we mean by the future, we mean 2026 and perhaps 2027. I do not agree if we're saying permanently into the future, 28, 29, 30, even 27 for that matter. I think the rate at which AI growth is occurring and where we see tremendous progress in its capabilities and the guardrails that are being built around it by the providers, I think we will get to a point where this sentence will not actually be true. And we might look back on it and say that the reality, in the future. That would be my comment there. I'm not sure that's exactly
I think AGI, artificial general intelligence, I think that might be the pivot where the future is all AI, but still data driven. I think that's the pivot point. So Jason's, I agree. The timetable on Jason's statement seems to be the next couple of years, but when we hit AGI, maybe I'm having a different conversation with this customer we opened up with where I say, yep, it's all AI. Throw AI at it. It's no longer a Band-Aid. It is a complete paradigm shift in how we go about what we do and run our networks.
We had one more comment that we noticed when we were reading Brad's article, and we wanted to save it to the end because maybe perhaps you've had a chance to go read the article in detail. And you'll notice there's a paragraph where Brad talks about Gen AI versus RPA. And then the beginning open sentence of that paragraph says, when differentiating the application of cognitive automation, Gen AI, and deterministic automation, RPA. And then both of us, when we read the article, we were like, deterministic automation, RPA. The acronym doesn't seem to align. And so RPA stands for robotic process automation. And so if you look at what robotic process automation is versus deterministic automation, what immediately popped into my head as the way to explain this is the fact that all whiskeys are not bourbon, but all bourbons are whiskey, right? So if you think of that concept, right, like just because you're a whiskey doesn't mean you're a bourbon, but if you are a bourbon, you are absolutely a whiskey. It's the same idea here, which is not all deterministic automation is RPA. But all RPA is deterministic automation. So that might be a little confusion as you read the article there. Those two different things. Robotic process automation is simply a way of implementing deterministic automation, as opposed to deterministic automation necessarily has to be RPA.
And since I drink tequila, and let me dumb this down for our tequila friends. All tequilas are mezcal, but not all mezcal are tequila. The same analogy.
Well, that's a wrap for this month's episode of The Automation Loop. Hope you found that interesting and insightful. Drop us a comment, share your insights, reach out on the NTC community forums, whatever makes sense for you. And until next time, keep automating, keep iterating, and stay curious.